are back. We are back. We are getting the weekend back. Welcome into another episode of the Weekendology Podcast, everybody. This is the show where we talk about movies, music, sports, and more related to media and give our takes on how we can change and improve them. So strap in. We've got a great episode planned for you guys today. So if you're new to the show, welcome. I'm your host, Will Deitchley, alongside my co-host, Aaron Berg. Aaron, what's going on today?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, not too much. So if you're listening to this is going to be our last episode before the new year is up. So I think there's no better way to usher in a new decade than with another episode of the Weekendology Podcast. So thanks, everybody, for joining. I want to give a big shout out to Colin Kessler of Big Red World Publishing Network. He's been with us for the last couple months and done a great job of helping promote this podcast. So I want to do a quick shout out for him. They're a great publishing network, so go check them out. They're on Twitter at Big Red Social, and their website is bigredworld.org. Also, we want to thank Michael Zavala, who was on our last episode, and MZ Studios for hosting us. They've been an incredible podcasting studio right here in Dallas, Texas, so come and check them out. Link will be in the description below. So today we've got a really cool episode planned for you guys today. We're joined by two incredible guests as we take on and shatter the stigma of fraternities and sororities in Greek life. So please welcome Michael Alamon and Amelia Bernauer. How's it going today, guys?
Great.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Good.
My first podcast experience.
Exactly, yeah. So we're doing a roundtable discussion today, so appreciate you guys joining us. So it's almost New Year's. Do you guys have any New Year's resolutions, or what's your guys' focal point for the new decade?
I don't know. I don't think I have anything right now.
I mean, you guys gonna do go and get in shape, or have any goals?
I'm already in shape.
Yeah. Mike's already in shape. He's been working out.
It's all about gains
since day one. So
he's a Sigma Chi. So
yeah,
we know how it is.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll definitely figure out what it is. Aaron, do you have any New Year's resolutions? Do you do anything special for New Year's around this time of year? Or?
I'm cheesy, and my New Year's resolution every year is to just be a better person than I was before. I'm
really
serious.
Generic,
I actually do think about that, but yeah, it's generic and basic, but no, that's pretty much it, because I figure if I set a resolution, I'm going to break it. And I always say something dumb, like I'm going to get in better shape or something like that. So just try to be a better person and improve upon each year.
There you go. People could learn from you then. So
I mean, they do on the Weekendology Podcast.
Exactly. they learn from us every week, but thanks everybody for joining us again. So as many of you know, Aaron and I went to college. Aaron was in Beta Theta Pi.
We went to college?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
We all went to college together.
We're college educated.
But Aaron, you want to tell us a little bit about your background kind of in Greek life and how you got started with it then?
Yes, I will start it off. So me, Will, and Amelia all went to St. Louis University, and I started in Greek life. I joined Beta Theta Pi, Phi Chi Phi, 1839. So I rushed right away, freshman year, 2010, it was fall rush. So first chance I got, went to rush, and I knew absolutely nothing about Greek life. My parents went to a small Christian school in Minnesota, so didn't have any legacies or anything like that in my family, and I don't have any siblings. So, very new to it, didn't look into it at all. I knew SLU didn't have a huge Greek system, but I knew it was there. And at that point, freshman year, I was just ready to try everything, because I, didn't know many people. It was a medium-sized campus, so I wanted to find people I connected with, because I just got to school and was just trying to make friends and meet as many people as I could and get involved in different ways. And I figured, you know what, I'm going to try this. I met a couple guys in passing who I liked and meshed with a little bit. And I rushed SAE and Beta Theta Pi were the two that I rushed, and thought I was going to join SAE. Got pretty into that fraternity, but a lot of those guys are older. Beta at the time at SLU was younger. So got a bid from them, and
the rest was history.
Went running. Yeah. No, it was good. And I was in it for 2 years. I got out after my sophomore year, so 2 years active, and then junior and senior year, as I've stated, I was a mascot. So that took up a lot of my time, and I figured I didn't have the time I should be contributing to the fraternity. So I figured it was a good time to get out there, but I still maintain the relationships and kind of watched from afar and
yeah.
did
And
that sort of thing.
Amelia, you also went to SLU, obviously, but you were part of Gamma Phi Beta, also the same class as 2014. So tell us, kind of how you got involved in the sorority and kind of what some of your beginning experiences were with it.
Okay, yeah. Well, sorry, I'm taking these off because I do not like the sound of my voice.
She does not.
So when I was a freshman, I watched my roommate and like a ton of girls on my floor. I lived on a co-ed floor. It's like girls and then guys like going through rush, and I really, really wanted to do it. And I kind of like stepped back and said I didn't. I was like, I'll wait and see how it goes. And then I was really jealous after everyone got their bids and was like going to formals, and I like was just working and like being a student. So then my sophomore year, I actually rushed, which was kind of weird, being like one of the older girls, and I was really nervous. I was like not going to get a bid, and then I ended up getting actually to pick which one I wanted to be in, kind of like Aaron. I was like between Zeta and Gamma Phi, and like Gamma Phi had this reputation of like the prettiest girls on campus, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be that, but I hope so, and I ended up getting it. And for me it was like I knew all these girls in Zeta, and I didn't really want to be a part of a sorority like I knew a ton of people in. I wanted to join a sorority I like knew no one, and like who ended up being my big was really like the reason I joined.
Nice.
G-Phi.
I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, is like, okay, don't want to go with just the pack of what everybody else is doing. You're kind of doing your own thing and making sure that you're involving yourself with brand new people, so to speak. And I think that's what a fraternity or sorority is all about, is obviously introducing yourself to new people and really getting yourself out of your own comfort zone as well. Mike, so you did not go to SLU.
I was the outcast.
Yeah, you were the outcast here. You went to Texas State University, part of Sigma Chi, is that right?
Sigma Chi.
Sigma Chi.
What a cheating line. Screwing it up off the
There you
bowl.
go.
Man.
Actually, I was testing you. I thought I'd, make sure you were a true fraternity brother, and, you got it there. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with it and kind of what your beginning experiences were.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just like Amelia, I came in my sophomore year. So I went to JUCO over here around the Dallas area. I had baseball scholarship. So once I found out that I wasn't good at baseball and I wasn't going to make it to the majors, I decided to shift my focus on education. So decided to go to a party school for that.
Is Texas State considered a party school?
It used to be. It used to be. It used to be called
It still is.
Southwestern State University.
Okay.
And that's where it kind of,
Because that's how, like, I'm from Missouri, so Mizzou is the party school,
Yeah.
like the state school of that. So I
Yeah.
guess is kind of the equivalent of...
Essentially, we've been called kind of the ugly sister school of UT, but
That's no good.
So it's UNT, the ugly brother.
I think actually that's a good way to put it.
There you go.
Yeah, so I came in my sophomore year, so I was rushed in fall 16. And so I kind of did my background research on it. So Sigma Chi is one of the largest fraternities, and I wanted just to kind of shift my focus to become a part of something that's bigger than me. So with me being in that baseball background, I wanted another brotherhood. I wanted something that, I can really not only set goals for, but set something that's going to keep me focused within college as well. So the way our rush system worked was we had events for a whole week. First event I went to was a casino night. That was pretty cool. Met some of the brothers out there, really just genuine, good people. Then after that, they kind of started, folding it down to a smaller group, kind of where they were getting invitations. So that was done at the house. We had a house a little bit off campus. It was kind of in the hillside country, as you can say. And then they did just a brotherhood cookout, did our interviews with it as well. So once I kind of like looked into it, I was like, this is a place I want to be. All the brothers that, were reaching out to me, all the people that I met, it was completely 180 of the fraternity stereotype. So that's the type of people that I want to surround myself with. And
Nice.
that was my only bid, but hey, it was the best bid I can possibly get.
Hey,
So
you got into it, and now the rest was history. And so
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly why I joined Beta. And it's so interesting to me how these fraternities change from campus to campus, because Sig Chi at SLU was the exact opposite. Sig Chi and Sig Ep were like, picture a fraternity guy in your head right now.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. And Beta was the opposite. And then if I met a guy at like Mizzou, it was that guy.
Mhm.
It was just that's always just blown my mind how I'll meet people in these other fraternities and I'm like, wait a minute, you're completely different.
Mhm.
When
I always find it interesting, like the different cultures between fraternities from different universities.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm an independent. I never had any culture experience with Greek life.
you have no
exposure.
culture. You uncultured swine, Will.
Do I have to have Greek life experience to have culture then? Is that how it works?
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess?
No,
okay.
You're not a true gentleman.
Okay. Well, I'm not a true gentleman then, but hey, I'm on the outside looking in. So it'll be interesting to hear kind of what your guys' experiences were with it as we dive a little bit deeper in kind of the stigmas that surround some of the Greek life and really kind of shattering those stigmas and bringing out some of the positives with it. Because it's more than just, all of the stereotypical things that you see, from fraternities or Neighbors is the movie, a lot of these other crazy movies that you see.
Animal House.
What do you, as an outside looking in, from you guys, what do you guys have some of the stereotypes for fraternities or sororities? I mean, obviously there's like 3 or 4 main ones, but, before you started, Aaron, what was your...
Like, what did I see personally? Or
yeah. What did you see as like the fraternity culture?
Like before I got in or while I was
before.
in? Before. I really didn't have that. The only thing that I was nervous about was hazing and drinking because I didn't drink when I got to college. And so I didn't, and I just thought, okay, I don't want to be, force-fed alcohol because you hear those stories and you hear about pledges dying and that sort of thing. Yeah. And just about how crazy hazing can get and, just all these like horrific stories you hear. So that was really my only concern. I didn't really, so I'm from Minnesota, so I didn't have the whole like, the Southern kind of vibe, people think, so I didn't, the whole frat bro thing, it was not, it is like popular up there, but I didn't
see
Ole Miss
type of fraternity.
Right. I didn't see those guys up there as much. So like, I didn't go in thinking that. I was just nervous about hazing. So, that's the only really, I guess, stigma or like doubt in my mind when I started rushing was, thinking that hazing was going to be super prevalent no matter what fraternity I joined. But then as I just paid attention to those things and thought, okay, how are these guys treating me while I'm rushing? If they're treating me like I'm beneath them while I'm rushing, then they're definitely going to treat me like dirt when I'm a pledge.
Yeah.
And so I made it known right away that, I'm going to treat these guys like my peer because that's what they are. They're my classmates. I mean, I did my schedule backwards where I had juniors and seniors in my classes. So some of these guys I had class with. And sorority sisters too. Like I had them in my classes, so I would interact with them. So I was like, okay, I'm not below you. You're not above me. And I would just tell them straight up, like, hey, this is what I will tolerate. Cause some of it's just in good fun and that sort of thing. But then I told them, this is what I won't tolerate. And I don't drink. So don't force me to do this, this, and this. And they're like, no, we're cool. That's perfectly fine. And they respected that.
Then, yeah.
And so
SLU was like a different culture though, I think with some of the...
but it was beta though. The Zeta Tau chapter was really that way. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this because they treated me like that off the bat. Whereas I feel like a lot of them, they might do that in rush and they become a pledge and they got you in and then they just flip a switch and they change.
Yeah.
So
Amelia, was there kind of any stereotypes that you had for sororities going into it? Because you were in college for a year before you went into to start rushing. So did you have any preconceived notions as to how sorority sisters were supposed to be, or was it different when you got in?
Yeah, kind of what I was kind of listening to what Aaron was saying and how like everybody seems so great from the outside, and I think for us, like it's a very formal process of rush, like. You have so many days, like 4 days where you're going to every sorority and they want to look the best in front of you. And they want you to only see like these great things they do with philanthropy and how much they're interested in you. And then you don't know there's like a big script behind it. Like you work for like a month on getting everything ready and like a week and a half of like full on practice. And I mean, you don't see that until you're in it. But coming from a similar background as Aaron, like no one in my family was Greek. My parents didn't really know anything about Greek life. I think the only exposure I had to it before SLU was touring schools. Like I remember when I went to Madison and I was like, oh my gosh, they have this huge Greek row. Like that's awesome. And even like U of I. And I really like wanted to be a part of that, but it wasn't like forefront. And I really wasn't like worried about like hazing. I was kind of like, if it happens, it happens.
Right.
And like really at SLU, there isn't really hazing.
I didn't really think SLU had too much of not the stereotypical type of fraternity or sorority culture, because it's a Jesuit school,
they try.
Well, they try.
You get guys that think they are. They think they're right out of Alabama, and it's like, no.
And that's when Aaron was saying, like, oh, like, I had really good friends who were Sig Chis and Phi Caps and things like that, and Betas, and like, everybody, like, I think on the guys' side, everyone's like, yeah, we're fratty, we get all the girls, and then they're trying to look like even like that more to the women.
Right.
And so I would disagree. Like every fraternity tried to act that way towards women, I would say, just from my experience and having friends, and then also just like meeting people. So
Yeah. Mike, so you said Texas State was like a huge party school, so to speak. So what was the culture like, there while in your fraternity? And then, what was your exposure to it before you started up? Any stigmas or stereotypes through it?
Yeah, just from a public forefront, we saw like a lot of the pledges walking around campus with, their bow ties, or some even had little pink
See, that's my
suitcases,
idea
stuff like that
of fraternity. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a little hesitant on that, just because I didn't want to, be made fun of, or just kind of have this guy walking in a, classroom full of 300 kids, and I have a pink suitcase and a pink backpack, and everyone's just laughing. But
I would have paid to see that. So that would have been great.
The main thing I saw, and I saw this later as I was inside the fraternity, but when people were rushing, they were really going above and beyond to try to make a name out of themselves before just being accepted. So you would see people come in already with that frat look. You would see people coming in already just kind of with that, glow to them, saying, "Hey, I need to be in this fraternity. This is why I'm here. Like, I'm frat. Like, I'm. This is why I'm here."
Or strat.
Yeah, or strat.
I saw that too. I did it.
So you saw these guys it's just incredible. Like, I mean, the shortest shorts, like shorter than some girls wearing it.
Man,
well, and they talk differently. Like, we did a dinner one time, and it's just funny because I was never that way. I always had the attitude of, okay, if they think I'm, not frat enough, quote unquote, then whatever, then they can, say, hey, you're not going to be in. But, and I just think to get into the point right off the bat of how do we change it, I think it starts there, is just be yourself, man. Like that's what these organizations are there for. They're to allow you to grow, but to accept you as who you are. And like they're choosing you, it should be because of who you are as a person and how you mesh with them, not because, you act a certain way. And I remember we were at a dinner and this kid came in, and I met him, and he could tell like I wasn't, frat and whatever. So the way he was talking to me was normal. I would say he was more himself around me. And then he turned, and right when he turned, he's like, "Yeah, bro, I was so fucked up last night. Like, I was slamming all these girls, and just every stereotypical thing you can think of." And immediately after he talked to me, I just thought, "Oh my gosh, like, why are you doing that?"
That's
like,
what
be
I
yourself.
think of a fraternity guy is pop collar shirts. He's got the pastel pink shorts, or whatever, the Sperry's, the bow ties, or the sorority girls, or not a little ditzy maybe,
clapping,
clapping, or going wooing all the time,
leggings,
exactly, all that kind of
Lily
stuff.
Pulitzer,
There you go,
monogrammed everything. But honestly, that's what I liked about it. Is I liked that's like the style, that's like the thing, and like Aaron, Will, they know like I love to craft, I love like to monogram everything. Like I don't know, I felt like that was something that was really unique about us as a group. Because I was in other groups, like my major like club, like for occupational therapy. And like that was cool. And we still had stuff like that there too. But that's what I liked about being in a sorority is everyone knew you were in a sorority. Like you walked around campus in your letters. Like you like, I don't know, it was just you went to formal and everyone knew, oh gosh, Zeta's formal's coming up. G5's formal's coming up. I got to see what those girls did, like what they did for their theme, like what they wore. I loved that.
Yeah, you get that sense of pride, like wearing your letters and having your you're on campus and you have your letters on everything, and people ask you about it. Yeah, it makes you feel proud because you're a part of
something bigger than you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that gets misconstrued a lot too when people say, "Oh, you're in a fraternity or sorority." It's such an elitist mentality, especially with walking around through letters or getting pumped for all the formals that are coming up. But I don't think that's really true. It's not an elitist mentality. It's being part of something, like you said, Mike, that's bigger than yourself. It's being involved with more of like a brotherhood or a sisterhood.
Being on a team, essentially.
Yeah, being on a team.
You're no different to me than you are the college athletes in that way.
Yep.
Because you essentially, more or less, you worked for something to get into something. You made the team, and then you support each other. You support the team, and there's, the president's like the captain, and then you have your ranks going on down. And so I think, and you work together to better the organization and leave it better than how it was when you found it, essentially.
Yeah. It's a snowball of Aaron too, is whenever, you're changing as you talk to these people just to try to get in a fraternity, if you're giving bids out to people like that, then it becomes a social club. If you're yourself, If you're a genuine person, then it becomes a brotherhood. And so that's where the line has to be drawn during the rushing process.
Yeah. And I think it's such a hard thing for college students to do because one, they're 18, 19 years old, just getting into college. Like, okay, I've got to put on this face or this mask for other people so people can like me. When that's not really the case, you know, if they're perpetuating the stereotype, even if they're not really realizing it. And as an independent looking at it, you know, I saw all these guys and gals, you know, being all stereotypical fratty or sorority like and everything. And that kind of turned me off because they were, like you said, Aaron, they were totally different people outside of the fraternity or outside of the club. So I guess the way is like eliminating that type of mindset going in and making sure that, you know, it's okay for people to just be themselves and it's okay for them to just, you know, be who they are and not perpetuate that stereotype then. So what were you guys' like interactions with other fraternities or sororities on campus? Did you guys have any like joint, you know, parties with them or joint, I guess, like fraternity formals, or how does that work?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, 2 fraternities and a sorority will get together, and sometimes it'll be called a mixer. So it just depends on which sorority that you want to invite or fraternities wise. But a lot of the guys that I played baseball with and against, they were in other fraternities. So we still had that competitive drive and, you know, with each other and stuff like that. But, you know, after the first few weeks, you kind of, you know, shield yourself away from the other fraternities just from what we saw. Like everyone's very standoffish. We're the best. We're the greatest on campus. We don't want to, you know, show ourselves around with Sigma Chi, stuff like that too. I mean, I even had buddies that I played baseball with, and I would never even talk to them until we played them in intramurals.
Wow.
So very
intramurals
competitive.
get intense.
Yeah.
See, and I feel like I had a completely different experience. Like, I feel like I was like super philanthropic, or not philanthropic. What is it?
Philanthropic?
No, I said the word correctly. Philanthropic.
Okay, well, I don't know.
When
what were you trying to say
you're
here?
part of like, what is it? The group, the people over us. I've been out of college too long.
Panhellenic?
Panhellenic.
Oh,
I was super
Okay, see, I wouldn't have known that. So.
Panhellenic.
Way off.
Where like almost all of my like friends in college were in different sororities. I lived with girls in different sororities. Like some of my really good friends from freshman year, before I was even in a sorority, were like a majority from like a different sorority. So to me, I feel like I was always like trying to be with the other girls. And even when I was a senior, I did like I was a Pi Chi, which is like where you go inactive for like the summer so that you can help with the rush like recruiting thing. And that's like actually where I met some of my friends like I would have never ever had. And those were all girls in different sororities because we had to like take away our letters and like work together. And I don't know, I liked that. Like I felt like that's the whole point I joined Greek life, was not to just make friends in my sorority, was to like make friends all over campus that I wasn't meeting in class. Because I mean, I was pretty like sectioned off from everybody else. I was on the med campus and like I had a ton of girls in my class, but like they were all OTs. So
yeah. And I think that's such a great kind of positive of being in Greek life, is it's able to connect with people that you would have never dreamed of, even if it's in your same social circle or outside of that kind of comfort zone. You're able to do that. Aaron, you know, were you kind of disappointed that SLU didn't really have like a Greek housing type of thing? Because I mean, there was DMAT and everything, but there wasn't like a true like fraternity house or
like
a sorority house. Yeah, like
Sig Chi had the unofficial frat house.
well,
yeah.
and Pi Cap, and there was like stuff like in the apartment buildings for like the upperclassmen. But explain like what DMAT is.
Yeah, so DMAT, I mean, SLU, for people that don't know, it's about like 2.5 miles away from downtown. So it's in a city. There's not a lot of space, so you don't have like a Greek row like a lot of the other campuses. So DMAT is a dorm where all the fraternities and sororities live on different floors. So,
And you lived there sophomore year. The only
yeah,
sophomore
you live
year.
there just sophomore year, right? No, actually, at the time, so 2 parts of that question. At the time, no, I actually liked how we didn't have houses because I was really involved right away. My freshman year, I pretty much only hung out with betas because like I wanted to go all in and really, you know, learn about the fraternity, build a good connection with the guys. I didn't want to just go to a party and head out and that's it. You know, I wanted to really build my connections off the bat. And so I was pretty involved, but I saw guys, especially when I got to sophomore year, that's all they did. And that's all they could focus on. And I just thought, man, if we had a house and I've seen it, I have had friends at other campuses, their world was in that house and that's it.
I'm sure, yeah.
And it's like, and seeing that, I was like, man, I'm glad because the people I got to meet, I had friends who were Greek. I had friends that weren't Greek. I had friends in tons of different other clubs and just all kinds of people. And I think it's easier to just, that is your world because you live there, you eat there, you study there, you do everything there, you know, and then it's easy to just hang out. If you're in a fraternity, just hang out with sorority girls, vice versa. So, however, I do wish though, looking back, I see the pros and cons because now looking back as an alumni, I kind of wish they did have houses though, because I see what they're missing. And I look at campuses like SMU by us right now. You can just see they have a stronger Greek life. And that's
they have a really good Greek life. I think.
I don't know. I think it's all about perception.
Right. Well, and that could be, or it could be there's other factors that play into it. But I think there's a lot of it is they have that more sense of community. Whereas if you don't have a house, like, it's just not, there's not, that passion is missing in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just like when you have a house, you're forced to be together.
Yeah.
Because like we had things like chapter rooms in DMAT that every like sorority and fraternity
they bring you together.
Had a chapter room and like you would do like social things there. Like, I mean, obviously no drinking could be done
we did a lot
there.
in DMAT.
And
we did a lot with
DMAT,
sororities
like they
in DMAT
had like one like big area where you would have chapter and stuff. So I mean, like there was spots, and I mean, like a lot of my friends, like we would like, one girl would always have like the thing before formal, like the pregame, and like all the girls would come to that apartment. And then there was like always a couple groups of that, like, you know, not a place where everyone could get together. But I even think in houses, like that doesn't happen. Like from that book that I read, I forget what it's called. The one
Dirty Rush.
Yeah. Like even in that, I didn't finish it, but you know, even in that, like some of the girls were going to the house, but like then there was always like little groups that break off. And
yeah, you know, not having houses too, and I thought this is another reason why when I was in school, I thought, no, I'm kind of glad we don't have a house, because I thought it did force you to have that sense of community because you had to reach out to people. You had to say, hey, we're meeting up here. You know, we are getting dinner. You have to show up.
You had to get your plan.
Yeah, you couldn't just rely on, people are here anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think it can, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the only one here that had a house. It kind of, what I saw, other people at houses, it just bred laziness because you're like, well, I live there. Whereas for us, like we had to make a little more effort to be a fraternity and be around
I think
people.
that's a good point because like you can get enwrapped in your own bubble, so to speak, with like you live there, you eat there, you know, you do your homework there, everybody that you socialize with is there. Texas State was a much bigger school than SLU though. So Mike, you had your own house. What was your kind of like experience with living in that fraternity house as opposed to, you know, the dorm life, you know, your first year or two there?
Yeah, so I actually didn't live in the house all my years, but we didn't have the typical fraternity house as everyone thinks. So we didn't have a frat row like some of the other campuses have. The only real fraternity house was Delt. Ours kind of looks like a little cabin. If you guys ever go check it out, it's probably about 10 miles off campus though. So it's right on Ranch Road. So it's literally just, if you think about it, just a hillside and then a little log cabin out there. But
that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was though. It kind of grew on me as my time, because I was wanting a house too, where, you know, think about partying, you know,
big
stairs, mansion,
pillars outside.
Exactly. But we use it for so many things. We use it for rush events, brotherhood events. We would go out in the back and we would start shooting skeet, pistols, stuff like that. All the brothers' dogs would be, you know, coming out there. So it was cool. Like it was away from campus kind of thing. So it really brought that, you know, brotherhood side of it all too, because like Aaron was saying, it brings people together.
Yeah.
Everyone took that drive to go out to the house. We all parked in the front and then boom, we were just there.
That's awesome too. And you talked about a lot about the brotherhood aspect of it, which I find that's what I find about fraternities and sororities and Greek life in general, just so fascinating, because you become something bigger than yourself, and you have the chance to be involved in faith events or service opportunities. You have chances to do philanthropic work.
Philanthropic.
Is that how you, okay, see, Amelia knows how to say it. Business opportunities, whatever it is. Did you guys have any kind of events that you guys did to kind of, you know, produce those type of events? Or
yeah, absolutely. One of the best events that we've thrown on was we sponsored the Huntsman's Cancer Institute. So it was a full week where brothers would have designated sororities that they would work with, and throughout the whole week there's fun games, stuff on campus or whatever, dunking each other, and we would always raise money towards the Huntsman Cancer Institute. So one of the years that I was there, one of my good roommates, he actually was the philanthropy chair that year, and we raised $10,000 for
awesome.
cancer research. So looking back on it, I think that once you get, like Aaron was saying, once you get, a team working together towards the same common goal, like we really made like a change in people's lives. Like I can really say like, hey, it wasn't just some fraternity that just partied all the time. It was someone that actually, created $10,000 and made $10,000 for cancer research. So it was cool to put that money in and say,
really
hey,
philanthropic of you.
Yeah. I feel like you're sugarcoating it a lot.
I think a lot of those events kind of fly under the radar though, because those negative stigmas and stereotypes kind of overshadow a lot of the sororities and fraternities as well.
Well, the thing is that people don't know is like you have, at least at SLU, I think this is everywhere, but we had to get service hours. You have, so that's a thing too, is like, I never did service. And that was a part of the reason I also joined, because I knew, hey, that's going to get me out and doing service of some type. And again, I wanted to do new stuff, and I figured I need to try some service and, see how that is. And it forced me to do, because I'll be honest, I wouldn't have done it otherwise. And it forces you to get up, go be a part of an organization, raise money. And then, like you said, Mike, like you look back and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I was a part of that and I did it. And so I think that needs to be pushed more in just the outside world of, hey, these fraternities, whether they're forced to do it or not, like, most of them, they do it because they're forced to, I'll admit it, but they're still doing it. They're still raising money. And I just think that's a huge thing that people need to know, is how like philanthropic they are to the community, or especially around them. It's a good thing that gets overshadowed.
Yeah, I agree too. And I was doing a little bit of research on kind of like the philanthropic events of the fraternities and stuff. I got it eventually. But I was reading an article, and they said that fraternity men in North America actually raised over $20.7 million for philanthropies and completed more than 3.8 million hours of community service over the last like 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's a huge statement to fraternities across the country, sororities as well. Women raised more than 5.7 million and completed nearly about 1 million hours of community service in this last academic year alone.
Yeah.
So that those are huge numbers for these quote unquote, negative stereotype frats and sorority girls or whatever. I mean, these people are here. You're here to change the world, so to speak. I mean, that's what you guys joined for, and that's what
sounds
a lot
like
of
the
these...
Marine Corps. You're here to be something bigger than yourself, and you're here to change the world.
Well, it's true. I mean,
we're saving lives.
Like
exactly.
my sorority, we had like 3 different like philanthropic things, and it kind of shifted throughout. And I mean, some were like more global, and then we had 2 that were like very local to St. Louis. Like we would go to North City and like tutor underprivileged kids and help them with their homework. And I mean, I liked it personally. Service was like not why I joined. Like I like it. I mean, I'm in a field of service now, like with my profession. But I mean, it was cool, but I felt forced, because it was like, you have to do these service hours, which I get. And like, it's wonderful, just raise money. But I think like for us, like it was more like, that philanthropy actually was a reason why I did like Gamify too, because it was with kids and I love working with kids. I've always like enjoyed that versus like some of them like breast cancer, other like I think like what's Delta Gamma is like with the blind and
Anchor
things
Splash?
like that. Well, so that is like one of their events, but they do their actual like philanthropy is like in St. Louis. They worked with the Center for like blind individuals who are blind.
Oh yeah.
And that's like their overarching thing. And like I mean, some of those are really cool and meaningful. But like I remember going to one of the sororities, and there's this breast cancer, and it was just like they raise a ton of money. And that's great, but there are so many other things that are so much more important sometimes, because like that's totally being covered in like a million different facets. And then like ours was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that's important, but
yeah, I like the local ones. Like we partnered with North Grand Services, and which is just right up the road from SLU. And I really liked that because we went into a low income neighborhood and we painted houses. And I mean, this was right out of high school for me. This was September freshman year for me. And I'd never been in an area like that. I'd never seen people that lived like that, essentially, that low income and just had those types of lives, and helping them felt good, and it made me feel good because I went to St. Louis University. I was helping St. Louis. I knew my footprint, my small footprint, Beta's small footprint.
But you knew
right
it was going to help no matter how much it was.
It was it was making a difference for the community that I went to school in.
Exactly.
And that made me feel great. And you know, as opposed to, not that it's not important to help these like huge, you know, Susan G. Komen and whatnot, but it's so cool to see it locally. And so I think fraternities and sororities, I agree, Amelia, like not that they shouldn't, you know, not partner with these huge, you know, Susan G. Komen and what, you know, those foundations, but focus more on the local ones, no matter where you are, because really, even if you're in a rural area, there's places that help those rural areas with whether it's, you know, hunger for kids or just farming, foundations and that sort of thing. So there's hospitals everywhere. I can always help a local hospital, even as simple as something as like visiting kids. I think that's something that could really help, is just going in and talking to kids or talking to elderly people is something that you can, it's super small, but you can make such a difference.
Yeah. One of the great things I like about the sorority and the Greek life culture in general is how traditionalized you guys are. I mean, your fraternity's been around since 1839, you said. Aaron or Amelia, how long? 1855.
Oh. We're 1839.
1839. Okay. But like all of these fraternities and sororities are based in so much of their own core values and stuff, which is ultimately why you guys joined. But, you know, what were some of those core values and how did you guys, I guess, promote those values throughout your time?
You're quizzing us now.
Well, I kind of want to dive
in. We're all old.
You want to pledge now?
Well, and some of those you can't tell people. Like ours are kind of secretive. I mean, you have your 4 core values that like are more out there, but they're like underlying things that like you're not supposed to talk about with like non-Greek, like
see, this is something I would have never
and stuff like
known,
that.
So.
But I mean, like I think for us, it was just like promoting like your knowledge and sharing it to like help other people. And like I think to me, like going to a Jesuit school, like that was like part of what our education was about, anyways. And so like I think those are just like normal things you should be promoting like every day, and like helping other people using like what you have to offer to like demonstrate and show other people like how to make their lives better.
Mike, was there something that stood out for your fraternity that, you know, really, you know, you took kind of heart to, and why you joined them instead of another fraternity on campus?
Yeah, it's actually within our literature, just a few snippets of it. First one was a man of good character. So that really kind of stood out because, believe it or not, a lot of the brothers would kind of hold true to that value. And then a little bit down is, you know, men with different temperaments, talents, and convictions. So understanding that everyone's different, everyone's not from the same area, everyone's not from, you know, the most perfect parts of the world, but when people come together and work towards, you know, the same common goal, there can be change with it. So those are the 2 things that sticked out, were the values of just our foundings really, you know, made me want to become a part of the fraternity just for that.
That's awesome. You're making me want to join a fraternity.
It's called the Jordan Standard.
Yeah, well, why didn't you join a fraternity? Just out of curiosity.
You beat me to it.
I just didn't really feel like that kind of culture resonated with me so much, and I got involved with SLU radio and TV pretty early on in college. I think it was my end of first semester, beginning of second semester, freshman year. So I kind of felt like that was where I wanted to go with what I wanted to do as kind of like a side thing outside of school. But I don't know. I never knew too much about the Greek life. I was either uneducated or turned off by some of the experiences that I had with some of the Greek life.
The I guess the stereotypes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, you know, I talked to some people who were in Greek life, and they perpetuated that stereotype of hardcore drinking and, you know, trying to get with girls or get with guys, or, you know, trying to really just promote their partying lifestyle. And that's what I thought a fraternity was supposed to be about, or what Greek life was, is because I only seen it through media and movies and talking with other people.
It's funny to me that, because I've heard a lot of people say that, but it's funny to me because college in general is kind of promoted that way.
Yeah.
Especially schools like Texas State, you know, these public universities.
I mean, you refer to it as a party school.
Yeah. Right.
So,
and so that's funny when people say that, because it's like, they'll be like, well, I was turned off by Greek life because I saw this, and this with partying. But then it's like, well, you went to college, and people tell you that about any college in America.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how there's more of that stigma for Greek life, but college has that same stigma, and people do that anyway.
Yeah, and I think it was accentuated to the fact, like, okay, I'm in college now, I'm on my own, I have a responsibility, but also, okay, the fraternities must take it one step further then, and kind of just go freaking nuts then, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's what probably turned me off to it, and I had other interests that I wanted to do. So
I'd start with you. How do we change this? Because I know we're not going to change it overnight. You know, there is a stigma and it's been around for decades. But what do we do to start that shift?
I think it's focusing on a lot of the core values that what a fraternity and what a sorority stand for. It's the service opportunities. It's being able to better yourself as a person and extending yourself beyond, you know, your regular social circle. It's getting yourself involved with so many different types of events and varieties and becoming something bigger than yourself too. I mean, Mike, you said it was the Jordan standard, you know, being a better man. And that always has resonated with me growing up is, okay, I have to better myself. I have to become something, you know, that's greater than what I was. And I think that's what a true Greek life kind of symbolizes. So I think promoting that element and really getting that out there instead of, you know, oh yeah, you can meet so many people and you can, you know, get with so many girls or get with so many guys and, you know, party your ass off or whatever. I think a lot of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of a huge selling point as to what people...
Yeah, it's a lazy selling point.
Yeah. So...
But I mean,
I guess that depends on the sorority or
yeah, I was going to say, coming from a sorority perspective, I don't think that... I think, yeah, like... you're going to have like all these things to connect you and like you're going to have friends that like have similar interests. But like what I would think would be like, I mean, my experience is like, I feel like I was a pretty respectable sorority member. I wasn't like getting shit faced and like making a fool of myself or the sorority. I wasn't doing stupid stuff. And when I saw girls from my sorority doing that in public, you know, I went into mother hen mode, like, okay, we need to like stop. Like, we can't have people thinking this way about us. So it's all about personal like responsibility. We're adults. Like we should know not to go. Like I remember we were at Fuse on campus, which is just like a dining hall. And these girls who ended up being my friends that were young, they were freshmen. I was like a junior, and they were shit faced. And it was like 4:00. It's because they had like gone to something with some upperclassmen girls, and like they were screaming about how they were like, Game of Thighs, like we're Game of Thighs. And like I was like mortified. And I went over there and I was like, guys, like you can't act like this on campus. Like, first of all, like if they like think you're drinking and you're 18 years old and you're screaming about being a Gamma Phi in your letters, like we're going to get in a ton of trouble. And I remember just being, you know, I don't know. I think that I take a lot of pride in things that I do, and not everybody does. And so I remember I talked to them about that. And then I remember like even later that year, they're like, we thought you were so mean and terrible. And like, we really appreciate that you did that, because no one really does that. I think
that goes back to just them not being themselves and having to put on this kind of facade of like, okay, I'm in this environment. Okay, it's time to, you know, really show people what I've got.
Well, wanting to be accepted.
Exactly,
I don't think it's a thing of not being yourself. I think it's a thing of, this is what everyone else is doing, so I have to like model after it. And I mean, I remember I've told you, Aaron, stuff where like I would go to a party and it's like you just feel awkward because everyone's being awkward and everyone's like trying to look cool and do like cool stuff, and it's like, yeah, like you're not trying to be somebody else, but like you also want to fit in, which is like the whole point of being in an organization like that. So
I would say too, like, so I'll admit I am a terrible fraternity member and I had to look up our core values. I'm also old, so
no, you're not promoting beta anymore.
I know, man. That's what a disgrace.
You get off the podcast.
Hey, you were talking about how they need to do active education.
Here you go, Amelia. I'm glad you said that. So our core values, and this is interesting because this is what you all said: cultivation of intellect, aka learning,
knowledge,
responsible conduct, being a good person, mutual assistance, helping other people, integrity, and trust. If you remember those 5 things,
that's just like steps to being like a good person,
right? And this is my point. Like, in generally for fraternities and I assume sororities, they're about those things. Like, all their principles are pretty much those things in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. They're very similar.
Right.
So, if you're a member of Beta Theta Pi, you learn about those core values in your pledge training. Why don't we teach the actives that again and again and again? Because they hammer that into your brain when you're a pledge. Yep. And then once you're active, it's just like, oh, sweet, you're in. And I've witnessed this myself. Everyone just forgets about it. It goes in one ear, they cram for the tests, they get the test score they want, they prove, look, I'm a good member. Then they get in and they're party time, and then they forget. And that's when you see guys being idiots. Whereas if you keep quizzing the actives I don't care if it's a president or who it is. Keep doing those classes. Keep reminding them, hey, man, these are our core principles.
Right.
Follow these. This is what we're about, and this is essentially why you joined. Keep reminding them of those and the history and the colors and every little thing about the fraternity that you learn as a pledge. That should not stop. Keep learning that, because there's so much more you can learn. And then I think you'll see, one, the pride for the organization rise, and you'll see the behavior change because people will be reminded
of those core values. Yeah.
Well, and why did I join? Why did this appeal to me? And it'll show you who the good members and bad members are, because the true guys or girls will remember, oh, this is why I joined, because it stands for this.
Right.
The letters on my chest mean this. And then you're going to see less people, I should say, woo, yeah, embarrassing myself wearing letters, because they're going to, wait a minute. And you see this in the Marine Corps. Like, you see guys, they don't act like idiots when they got the Eagle Globe and Anchor on their chest. They act a certain way because they know they're representing that organization. And it's because when you're in the Marines, and I'm sure other branches of the military, but I saw it in the Marines, they are constantly reminding you of what it stands for and what that means. Yeah. And you can just see it. So I think
that's more than yourself.
Yeah, the organization you'd see members remember that more, and you'd see an improvement.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any kind of, going off of what Aaron was saying, anything that you would like to see them do more of or less of or change within the fraternity culture?
So I like that a lot, because I think that's an internal solution. Now, before I get into this, did you guys have like a Greek affairs office at SLU?
So that's like the panhandle people, like
an interfraternity council.
Yeah, but actually like Greek affairs, like it's run through the school, like employees.
Yeah, and we had them too.
Yeah. As well.
They weren't big, but we had them.
Yeah. So my biggest solution when it comes from an external side of it all is making sure that you're close with the school, making sure that the school understands that you guys are having this relationship. Just tell them what you're doing, tell them how you're impacting the community, tell them, changes in the fraternity that are positive, that are, brothers that are graduating, that are getting in these, Fortune 50 jobs out of college. So one of my fraternity brothers, he was president at that time. He actually had a bi-weekly meeting with the head of Greek affairs. So he knew exactly what we were doing every weekend. All of our parties had to be registered. We let him know about all of our philanthropic events. We let him know about some of the events that we're doing for the school, kind of just some of the changes within the brothers and how we're changing as a fraternity. So I think that once you have the school backing up, that's going to help kind of just change the stereotype in its own, because the schools are now going to be more accepting of these fraternities on campus and stuff like that as well. So that's going to be a huge thing, because, I mean, the Greek affairs is the hand. I mean, they can take you in or they can take you out kind of off the campus. So once you build that relationship with them, they're going to start promoting kind of what their fraternities that are tied to their school are doing for the community.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's a great point. And I think there's a lot of great points that have been made here. It's a great topic to talk about. And, I love these kind of episodes to kind of just break the stigma of certain things, and kind of challenging the status quo is kind of our tagline, so to speak.
So I have something to say really
quick.
Go
ahead.
So kind of what I think both of you guys were saying is that, it kind of helps to have like a good president or good exec board. And I felt like that was like a problem with like my sorority, is that we always kind of had this like dysfunctional exec board and like leadership. And I think that's like why there is a bad stigma sometimes, because you're like, I remember like we had a good president. I want to say like my sophomore year, like going into because they flip halfway throughout the year, so you're getting like two different presidents every year basically, because they're on that weird like spring to fall annual thing. And so I just remember like thinking like my senior year, and this is probably a big reason why like I just kind of checked out my senior year, is that we had this terrible exec board who like didn't care, like put no effort in, like instead of like fixing stuff, they were just like, we're gonna put a band-aid on it and we're gonna just let it kind of fester. And then that's why things happen. Like you get kicked off for alcohol related stuff, because they know there's bad eggs and it's their friends, so they just hide it, they cover it up. And then I think that's a big problem, and something that does need to change is you need to make sure that your exec board is accountable. And they're like I wanted to be on exec board, but I was really busy in school, and like even one of the girls who did like all the recruitment stuff, like was like, I really want you to do recruitment. And it's like, I couldn't. And so then they got someone who was like, okay. And maybe I wouldn't have gotten it. And I know me and Aaron have had these conversations before, but it becomes like a popularity contest of like, oh, I know all of these girls and they're all going to vote for me. So why does the other person even try? And I think that's a big problem, that the exec board isn't great. And then you don't have support from your like reps from like the fraternity. Like we always had like a couple older women that were Gamma Phi's that were like our support. And then also like the university. So like if you don't have good people leading, like you just aren't going to have a good reputation.
Totally agree.
Like
That's a good point too. Aaron, before we end the podcast here, do you have like a favorite memory from being in the fraternity back at SLU? You know, regale us with your favorite memory then.
Ooh,
Oh,
this
man.
This will be good.
Party stories. No. I would say just all the formals. I really enjoyed the formals because it was such we did brotherhood events and that sort of thing, but I think the formals really brought everyone together because you could meet other guys' girlfriends that maybe they weren't bringing around because they weren't in a sorority, or you could bond more because everyone was there and they wanted to be there, and it was also fun. It wasn't like a rigid, forced thing, and we did some cool stuff. Like we got a riverboat on the Mississippi River, and we just floated down the river for 2 or 3 hours, and
That's awesome.
it was like a party boat, so we had like the dance floor, and then we had dinner up top, and it was beautiful weather, so it was just a really fun night. But we went to Lake of the Ozarks for another one too, and that was a good time. So I would say the formals were my favorite part, just bringing everyone together and getting dressed up and getting closer with the actives, and then also meeting their significant others.
Amelia, do you have a favorite sorority memory from your time?
I have a couple. Like I would say I loved every bid day. Bid day was always so fun. Like you dressed crazy. You were always with like your good group of friends, and you just like were welcoming all the new like members, and it was just really special. And then I also like loved getting ready for events like with my friends, and like just like thrifting and trying to find the craziest outfits to like meet the themes, and just having a lot of like I met some really good girls that I still talk to and like have been in their weddings, and those are like memories I'll have forever.
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome. Mike?
Yeah, this one's kind of
You've got to have some good ones.
No. This is near and dear to my heart. So, sorry to go a little dark here, guys, but a good fraternity brother of ours passed away, and we went to the funeral. And then the next week, we had this big intramural game. It's one of the biggest fraternities on campus dealt. A lot of the guys that were playing there were, ex-college athletes, stuff like that.
Right.
Our fraternity as a whole never won any championship. So before the game, we all gathered around, and it was about 80 of us that showed up to the intramural game. So we got together, we prayed, we said, we're doing it for you, Logan. And then come to see it, we smashed them.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Hit some few
great.
dingers, hit some few doubles, and then we won the game. But it was just an all-around beautiful experience, and I saw the picture, so
That's
it's
awesome.
things like that
That's
where
awesome.
you hear about people's memories, and you hear about just good things from the past, and you think about it. I mean, that brotherhood, that sisterhood really comes out through those memories. And sometimes, and people always worry about that inside. They're like, oh well, do we have enough brotherhood around here? Is there, sisterhood strong, whatever. But you hear about stories like that, and to me, you talk to people, it's less about I was getting messed up at this party, and more about things like that, where
and that's
each
what
story
we should be promoting too.
you come together and you really just have fun together. You make the connections and you make your friends, and
Nice.
you support that sense of community.
yeah, we would have the pledges bring our letters to the games and put it on the sideline. And then so the pledges, what they did, they brought it in the middle of us, gathered around in a circle, held hands, and said we did it for Logan. So it was just an all-around
incredible.
amazing experience.
Yeah, it's
all
really
around
That's
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we've had some great stories here tonight. Very educational from me being an independent, learning about your guys' experiences and cultures as well. And hopefully we can continue the conversation in the comments down below. So tweet at us. We can be found at Weekendology Pod on Twitter. We're on iTunes and Spreaker. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartMedia now. So just go ahead and check us out. Rate, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you guys want to follow Amelia, you can find her on Instagram. You can find Mike as well at Twitter. I'll put all of their handles in the descriptions below. Be sure to check out our last episode on Apple Podcasts, where we talk about with Talia Paris, Playboy model, about her career in modeling and how Instagram has changed the game.
Follow her too.
Yeah, follow her too as well.
Already suggested.
Yeah.
Just shaking my head.
Amelia's not happy about that. Big shout out to Colin Kessler as well with Big Red World. They're on Twitter at Big Red Social, and their website is bigredworld.org. Thanks everybody for joining us for 2019 for Weekendology Podcast. We can't thank you enough for all the support that you guys give us. 2020 is going to be a big year for us. We're really excited to kind of keep this podcast going, so we appreciate it, and look out for us new episodes every Friday. So we'll see you guys next week.